growing over 100 houseplants in here. And by far, these 10 houseplants are the easiest to grow. These plants would probably survive without me, that's how easy they are. We're gonna start off this list, and by the way, this list is in no particular order. We're gonna start off with my Peperomia Beetle. Now, this plant lives in honestly terrible growing conditions at the moment. It is in my bedroom. It is on a windowsill, but the window has an overhang over top of it, so it really does not get a lot of sun. It gets very, very low light, and it is right above a heat vent, so there is warm, dry air blowing at it all day, every day, and yet it just continues to grow. It continues to be super lush and adorable. You can see why it's called a Peperomia Beetle. The leaves kind of look like little beetles. Really, really cute. The leaves on most Peperomia are super, super plump and succulent, and they hold a lot of water. Because of that, you can go a long time without watering because the plant can survive on the water that it holds in its leaves, which is really useful when you want an easy care plant. I've had this plant for, I would say, about 3 years, and in those 3 years, I have kept it in a variety of settings. I've had it on a desk where it looked really cute because it's so small and compact. I've also had it trailing down my plant shelf where it looked really beautiful, and it looks really, really beautiful on my windowsill right now. The windowsill is not a great setting for plants, like I said, so not a lot of plants live there, but this one enjoys the neglect. It likes it there. It just keeps growing and growing. A lot of trailing plants like string of hearts, string of pearls can be kind of tricky and picky to grow. So this is a really great alternative if you want that trailing stringy look, but you have killed all of those plants in the past. I bought this plant from a grocery store. It was near the checkout and I believe it was under $5. Peperomia can be really, really affordable and really fun to grow. They're cute. They're easy to care for, and definitely a great beginner plant if you are looking for a trailing plant that is still really easy to grow. Next plant on the list is my Filodendron Florida. As you can see, it is massive. It is growing up this really, really big pole, and actually it's really, really heavy. This plant is such a centerpiece in my home. It kind of fills up the entire back wall there, and yet I constantly forget to water it. It just sort of is there and I almost don't see it anymore, and then I remember to water it, and despite all of that, it just keeps growing and growing. I have cut this plant back multiple times, and then I just propagate the stems and put them in the bottom there so that it keeps getting fuller and fuller, and it is just happy growing and growing and growing. It does get quite a bit of light now, but in the past I have kept it in lower light conditions and it has done amazing. The leaves are getting really, really big and they are so unique. There is some noise because my husband is renovating in the background, so if you hear weird noises, just ignore that. I am not sure if the variegated versions of this plant, like the Florida Beauty or the Florida Ghost, are as easygoing as this plant. If they are, I should probably get some, but I am just so happy with this plant that I haven't really looked into the variegated versions. Now, the one thing you do need to do for this plant if you want it to get super, super tall is that it does need to have some type of support. Obviously, I have it on this bendy moss pole, but if you wanted to keep it small and bushy, you could do that too. You would just keep chopping it when it got to the height that you wanted it to, and then it could just kind of like flop down. That is something that I have considered doing in another room with all my propagation. Now, I got this plant from a big box store about 2 years ago. It was really, really tiny. It had like 3 leaves, and since then it has just exploded and gotten huge. I think it was about $10. I don't know what the price of these are now. I feel like it's probably about the same. I feel like this plant gives very, very tropical vibes, and because it grows so fast, it can really fill in a space. So if that's what you're looking for, but you don't want a super, super finicky plant, I think this is a good choice. I find this way easier to grow than, for example, a Monstera deliciosa. I find those are pest magnets and need a lot of light, whereas this one, I've never had any pest issues, and like I said, gets like medium light now and has survived in lower light. So this is a really good alternative if you want that big tropical plant, but you struggle with Monstera or you just can't find one. This would be a really good option for you. Number 3 on my list is Hoya Curtisi. I would not put all Hoyas as easy care, super low maintenance plants. However, Hoya Curtisi is definitely in that category. This plant, unlike a lot of Hoyas, does not require a ton of light to grow. As you can see, it's growing these long tendrils and it gets medium light, whereas other Hoyas really do need a lot of light to grow. Because these leaves are so thick and firm, they hold a lot of water. So like the peperomia, you don't need to water this often. When I remember, I will check the leaves, and if they are soft, I will water. If they are firm, I will just forget about this plant again for another few weeks. I think this plant could grow in a variety of conditions. I've had it in darker rooms and it has done just fine as well. This plant is a really unique plant while still being low maintenance, which sometimes can be a difficult combination to find. Hoya Curtisi is fairly available at the moment, at least where I live. I see it often in big box stores, grocery stores, as well as plant nurseries, and they're usually quite affordable. Because it grows so fast and because it really doesn't need a lot of care, I recommend this plant to anyone who's just looking for a low maintenance but really unique plant. Number 4 on my list is Aglaonema Lady Valentine. In general, most Aglaonemas are very, very easy to care for. However, I would say that this variety is exceedingly easy to care for. It lives in my low light bathroom. I water it when I remember to, and it gets really dusty. I don't know why. I just washed off the leaves. But despite all those things, it continues to put out new leaves. It's putting out an entire new plant over here. I also have Aglaonema Aurora mixed into this pot. As you can see, those plants are way smaller. Those grow way more slowly. I also had to chop off a bunch of them because they just were not thriving. However, the Lady Valentine grows no matter what. I've never had any issues with pests. I've never had any issues with rotting or anything like that. And even though this has really, really thin leaves, it doesn't seem to be too picky about watering. If you forget to water it for a couple weeks, it will be okay. If it is really dried out, it will start to kind of wilt, and then you water it and it perks right back up. It is totally fine. I think this plant is a really good alternative for people that want a colorful plant but maybe don't have the time to care for a Hoya or a pink princess or something like that. This plant will just literally thrive no matter where you put it, and even if you forget to water it. Number 6 is another really, really large plant in my collection. This is my Filodendron Rojo Congo. It is absolutely beautiful and so easy care. This plant literally lives in a dark corner, and I water it when I remember to, and it continues to shoot out new leaves. The new leaves are this beautiful pinky red. The one extra care tip I have for this plant is to clean the leaves. The plant will do fine if you don't, but if you clean the leaves, they will be so shiny and eye-catching, and it is worth the extra little bit of work to keep it looking amazing. This plant is really heavy. This plant can instantly fill in an empty space in your home, and because it's so easy care, it's a really good option for people that want something that is really decorative but they don't really have time to care for. The next plant looks super, super exotic and difficult to care for, but I have found it really, really easy. This is my Xanthosoma Lindenii or Caladium Lindeni. This plant does prefer lots of light, but if you aren't able to give it a lot of light, it will still grow. I also like to keep the soil moist on this one, but I have forgotten to water it and it was really, really forgiving. These little brown tips are from too much fertilizer, so maybe just don't fertilize it. It probably will be fine. I find that caladiums in general are really, really picky, but this plant is not. It also doesn't go dormant in the winter, which is different from most caladiums. It just keeps growing. We are in the middle of winter and it is putting out 2 new leaves. They can become really, really full. This one I actually got as a rescue plant. It was $1 and had 1 leaf. When I got it, I assumed it would be really picky like other caladiums, and I wasn't totally sure I would be able to rescue it, and yet here we are. I would definitely say this is one of the easiest plants I have, and if you forget about it, it will forgive you. Now, obviously on easy care plants, I need to include one pothos. I would say of all of the pothos, in my experience, neon pothos is the easiest to care for. I find golden pothos is very prone to thrips. I don't know why. However, neon pothos is made of steel. It resists all pests. It continues to grow if you forget to water it. It will grow faster with lots of light, but if you don't give it a ton of light, it will still grow and be totally fine. I have chopped my neon pothos so many times to make propagations to give away, and it just keeps growing. I think because neon pothos is such a unique color, it's a really nice plant to add to your collection. It's like a little burst of neon anywhere you put it. Because it's so easy and versatile, you really can put it anywhere and it will grow, look great, and overall is a great choice. Next on my list is Filodendron micans, and I had sworn off this plant for so long. I had a micans for a long time that was really struggling with thrips. I treated it, it just could not get rid of the thrips. Eventually I threw out that micans and decided to just be without a micans. Then I saw this really healthy micans at a nursery and I decided to try again. This plant has grown so easily for me. I have absolutely no complaints. A lot of other velvet-leaved philodendrons like Melanochrysum or Gloriosum are a little bit finicky and can be difficult to grow. So micans is a really good option if you want a lower cost alternative or just an easier plant to care for, but you really love that velvet-leaved look. My favorite part of micans is the new leaves. They're like goldish orangey green and have even more iridescence as they harden off. This plant is absolutely stunning. Next easy plant is another peperomia. This is my Peperomia happy bean. This plant actually grows right beside my Peperomia beetle and it is happy no matter what. Again, it has those really plump, squishy leaves which hold a ton of water and make it just survive any drought that it might have to go through. This is thriving in that lower light situation and it is thriving despite a heater blowing right on it. This plant propagates itself really easily, so it's a great plant if you love to propagate and experiment with propagation. It obviously looks like little green beans, which is, I assume, why it is called the happy bean. These plants are really easy to find. They are in grocery stores all of the time, and if you see one, you should pick one up. They're so cute and can grow literally anywhere. Now my number 9 on my list is that vine up there. I often get asked what plant am I growing up there. That is my Rapidor Tetrasperma. So the plant starts in this pot here right beside my cabinet and the pot isn't that big for how big the plant is. I've added some propagations recently hoping to make this plant a little bit bushier and then it grows all up the wall. This vine lost a ton of leaves last winter, I think just from age. I don't think it was struggling at all, but it continues to grow up here where it branches out into 2 separate vines and they continue along here. That vine ends here and then the first vine just keeps going and going. It amazes me how healthy these leaves are even though they are so far away from the roots. I've attached the vine to the wall with command hooks so I can remove it if I ever want to, but for now I'm really happy with how it looks. I need to attach this vine, which is starting to go to the ceiling. This plant, like all of my other easy care plants, I forget to water it all of the time and yet it continues to grow. I would be fine if it didn't grow so quickly, honestly, because it's slowly taking over my house. The one thing this plant does need if you want it to get really tall is of course some type of support. These are just bamboo stakes that I got from the hardware store and I attached them together to make a really tall stake. It can be something really simple like that because it doesn't root into it or anything. It just needs something to support it as it grows. Number 10 on my list is another peperomia. This is Peperomia Hope. The leaves on this plant are so chunky and adorable and satisfying. I love just like squeezing them. They are so cute. New growth is adorable. It's just miniature discs and then they slowly get bigger and bigger. I've had this plant for about 3 years. It grows happily. Like the other peperomias, I will water it when the leaves get a little bit squishy. Other than that, it just grows. I have propagated this plant multiple times. It seems to really enjoy being propagated. When you snip it, it will often branch out and get even bushier. This plant gets medium light. It does live near a window, but other than that, like I said, I water when I remember to check the leaves. One thing with peperomia that is good to know is if you over fertilize, the leaves will often yellow. So that is one thing to be aware of. I use a really gentle all natural fertilizer, which has not yellowed any leaves at all, and these plants seem to really like it. But if you do use a really strong chemical fertilizer, I would dilute it by a lot or maybe just skip it completely. Otherwise, you might deal with some yellow leaves. But other than that, peperomia are so easy to care for and so adorable. All right, friends, that is all from me for today. If you are growing any of these plants and you also find them really easy care, or if you don't, just let me know. I'm curious what other people's experiences are. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope your plants are doing really well, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.